Well, wrong channel, but I'll do it anyways. It was supposed to be from my other channel. I hit live by mistake. So today I'm going to be talking about sex, lies, and drug use. The story of the WWF scandal from 1992. If you like videos like this, leave a like and subscribe. Videos uploaded every week. I'm going to show you a recording of the Phil Donahue show. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about it. So, I got a funny feeling my video will be blocked because of this. But if it is, fuck them. I'm not going to show it. I'm just going to play the sound of the Phil Donahue show. I'm not going to show you the actual video. So, let's begin.
Sex abuse underway in the world of wrestling, and everybody all these years has been scared to step forward. Now come forward a number of people to say, because I wouldn't have sex with another guy in the game, I couldn't get promoted, including three, honestly, some listen, while you're laughing, this has been a not so funny issue for women. Now we have a casting couch essentially alleged in the wrestling game, and some guys are saying, I lost my job because I wouldn't do this to this guy who was higher, more powerful than me on the ladder.
Okay, can I just stop you there for a minute? This was under Vince McMahon's watch. The whole entire thing. This was under his watch. And he claims he never knew about it. Well, in this video, the people who used to work for him come forward and tell you stories that happened behind the scenes before the events ever took place. So I'm going to play it. And so let's listen.
And before you think this is trivial, first of all, let's understand that a couple of these charges involve kids, 14 years old, juveniles. You go to jail for a long time if you're involved with sex of any kind with a juvenile. One more point. The Wrestling Federation, you know how you tee-hee, ha-ha, what a joke, hoo-hoo, $1.7 billion in 1990. That's more revenue that has been generated by the NFL. So while you're laughing, somebody is whistling all the way to the bank. We have three people who used to be in the wrestling game who are going to tell you that they indeed encountered people who wanted sexual favors, and they were professionally penalized when they said no. And if you think the WWF is hiding behind lawyers, here is the head of that organization, who has accepted, incidentally, recently, resignations from two executives who stand accused of gay sexual harassment. He'll have a prepared statement. First, let's get the charges underway here. Gentlemen, Murray Hodgson, hired by Vince McMahon, here on my left for the TV jug.
All right, Romero. I think it's Mr. Hodgson was under contract to the WWF for 2 years. He was brought in as a ring announcer. No, he was brought in as a commentator. So what this guy is going to do, he's going to explain in the video of why he was fired. So this is pretty graphic stuff. So let me play the video. You'll find out.
You were the commentator. And then fired 2 months later. What happened? Can you specifically, and without taking us around the world, tell us, what is it that happened to you? I wouldn't sleep with the vice president of operations, so they fired me.
I wouldn't sleep with the vice president of operations, so they fired me. Those were his exact words. And this poor man was under a 2-year contract to the World Wrestling Federation, and he just said, "I wouldn't sleep with the vice president. That is what fired me. That's why I got fired." Isn't that something?
Is the vice president of operations one of those who resigned?
Yes, he is.
And do you want to name him?
I don't think that'd be necessary.
The vice president of operations was Pat Patterson.
What, did you announce? Did you do any color for any telecasts?
Yes.
About how long did you do the color?
Oh, I started for about a month. They hired me for a 2-year deal and just went right out the window when I decided that I didn't want to sleep with the vice president.
What?
Now, he was under a 2-year contract, and he stated that they wanted him to sleep with the vice president. He said no, and he got fired over it. And I think he said in the video that he ended up taking them to court. So let's listen to this.
Was there any touching? Was there any kind of vulgar locker room activity? We're trying to be specific here, Murray, as a court of law would oblige any person to be of any gender.
It was a little worse than that. He blatantly threatened my job security.
He didn't say sleep with me, did he? Is that the way men talk?
I don't think this is the proper forum to...
I agree with you, and I appreciate very much you're bringing a certain amount of decorum to this. This is a daytime television show, and we don't want to draw any dirty pictures. Did it happen more than once?
No.
Just once?
Yeah.
And then how long after you said no were you dismissed?
A couple of weeks.
Barry Orton. Here's Barry O, the former professional wrestler who you think you lost your...
Barry O was a jobber in the World Wrestling Federation. Barry O was related to Bob Orton. If you don't know that, he was related to Bob Orton. And Barry O is Randy Orton's uncle. And he was involved in this. Let's listen.
Job with the WWF after refusing similarly.
Actually, no, I've never actually said that. Okay, that's something that the media has come out, and with the stories that I've given, they have kind of turned it around where I've said that. I've never said that. However, I had encounters with two of the gentlemen that have resigned since the allegations began. And these incidents, of course, happened in 1978, which is a long time ago. However, the impact and the gravity of the situations are very severe. And, you know, if they were behaving that way then, and, you know, they would be behaving that way now, I would expect.
No laugh here. You accused an executive grabbing your crotch, legs, and chest and wouldn't stop.
Yeah, well, I was in between the two of them in the back seat of the car on the trip.
You were in the center.
Right.
And you thought it to be a place where a junior guy has to sit.
Pretty much.
This was the early 80s?
This was 1978.
78.
Right.
So this is before the $1 billion.
That's pretty graphic stuff. This is in 1978. That's terrible.
Wrestling Mania Pay TV, Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yes.
Era. And you had to drive. You know, you guys weren't walking in money then.
Right. And everyone, you know, the more people in the car, the better, because everyone would split the expenses and keep their time.
And then didn't you saying that you got out of the car and said, not me? And
oh yeah, you know, went on for several minutes. I finally demanded that the car be. At first, I thought it was kind of funny that they were joking, but then it became, you know, harassment.
Right. Barry, it would be hard for a jury to feel a whole lot of sympathy for a guy of your size. You know what I mean? A helpless woman you're not. How old were you when this transpired?
19 years old. Probably about 35 pounds lighter.
And also probably not altogether together in your head like a lot of 19-year-olds. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely not. You know, and I was trying to be accepted into the business. I was young, I was green.
And you got the big dream ahead of you. Maybe you're going to be the big guy. And there was money if you got on the main card.
Yeah.
So you're following your dream, and I suppose you want us to know, among other things, that when a couple of guys in the game, executive types, come on you like that, and you're 19 years old, you may be a little hesitant to tee them off.
Of course. You know, and so I endured it for as long as I could until it became, I started feeling suffocated or, and I couldn't take it anymore.
Tom Hankins, you're likewise a pro wrestler. What's your story, Tom?
Well, I'm a former pro wrestler. I got out of the business about 4 years ago. But back in 1985, here in Los Angeles, California, at the University Hilton Hotel after the WWF had run a card at the sports arena, I was sitting at a bar with, I guess, can I name these people? With Pat Patterson, Andre the Giant, Dr. Jerry Graham, and Mike LaBelle, who was the Los Angeles promoter at the time, or a former promoter in Los Angeles. Right. And we sat there drinking maybe for an hour or so. I was talking to Pat, known Pat for maybe 6 months. I knew he was gay, but it didn't matter to me if he was gay or not. And I knew he was actually kind of running the shows in LA at the time. I don't believe he was in position as the booker yet. And I asked him,
let me interrupt to say that he is one of the executives has resigned.
Right.
Very good, sir.
And I asked him, what's the chance of using me to do jobs, which means I was a loser. I'm not real big. I never made a lot of money in the business. I didn't really expect to go in the WWF, make a lot of money.
But you wanted to be in the game.
Yeah, I love the business. I started out, I worked for $10 a night sometimes in Tennessee, not just to wrestle, just to be in the business. At the time, in 85, I was wrestling in Hawaii and Mexico and Southern California. So I asked Pat for, if he give me a shot or at least a tryout. He said, well, you got 2 chances, slim and none. He goes, well, there is one way. And he wanted me to come up to the room with him and have oral sex with him. And I said, oh.
So there's one way to get into the wrestling business, and oral sex is one of them. That is disgusting.
I'm not interested. And after that, I went to the next show they had at the sports arena. Went down to the dressing room where they'd always let me in. I was in the dressing room, friends with a lot of the other wrestlers there. And Pat had me physically thrown out after that, acting like he didn't know me.
Right. What brings you forward now, gentlemen?
Actually, I came forward because when Vince said various charges were ridiculous, it was just, I knew it was something that went on in the business, and anybody in this business who really knew about it knew what was going on with Patterson.
Mm-hmm. So this is like this is a feature of this culture that has been underway for a long time, and because it often involves near jobless, vulnerable young males who wanted to be either in the game or on the card, they back up and nobody wanted to blow any whistles. And I think, if I may, this also should be said, you didn't get a lot of press scrutiny. Nobody took you seriously anyway. Mainstream press, sports press today doesn't. And Mushnick of the New York Post writes a piece, Phil Mushnick of the New York Post, his lead last week, the billion-dollar pro wrestling empire is about to be shaken to its foundations by a teenage boy scandal, the Post has learned. All right, here's part of the story then, and Mr. McMahon, sir, you are the boss. You are what we would call in my neighborhood, when we were growing up, a successful big shot.
I just want to let you know, you're going to hear people talking like superstar Billy Graham, Bruno Sammartino, John Arezzi, who is still podcasting. He has a wrestling podcast in Nashville, Tennessee. You're going to hear from him. Yeah, but you're going to hear the audience, giving their thoughts on this. So I'm going to play it again.
This is some operation you have. Over $1 billion in annual revenue. You have, throughout the 80s, taken this thing that so many people snicker at. You have filled the Pontiac Superdome with the help of Hulk Hogan and an occasional theatrical idea that included Cyndi Lauper and the marriage of kind of pop music with this through the roof. Through the roof. The PGA should pray for these kinds of revenue. And now here you are being accused, Mr. McMahon, of presiding over an organization that looked the other way while these sex harassment charges were being, sex harassment activity was taking place. Sir, you wanted to say.
We've never looked the other way in anything. And I'm very happy to confront everyone today with whatever allegation they have. The 3 individuals about whom most of these allegations are hurled are no longer with the WWF. We have started an independent investigation on our own to get to the bottom of all of this, and that's why we're here today, is to get to the bottom of it. We may even learn something here today that my investigators do not know. I want to get to the bottom of it just like you gentlemen do.
What would you like to say to him? Anybody?
I'd like to say that it's about time because Up until now, you've been adamantly denying that not only that this is taking place, but that
This is when the conversation gets serious and heated. Listen.
and you're saying that you knew nothing of it, and I just find that really difficult to believe.
Well, there's no reason how you find it difficult to believe that I knew nothing of it. Why would I condone this kind of activity and risk this alleged kind of revenue?
Because you are the king of an empire and you have eyes and ears everywhere, and it is so common, at least the topic of conversation for 3 to 5 minutes every night in the dressing room, because a lot of the guys, they have to put up with it and they hate it because if they say anything, they're out of a job.
I don't believe that to be the case, but there may be some of it. If that's the case, then let's get to the bottom of it. I'm anxious to learn, just as you are.
Well,
I want a wholesome organization. I want an organization that everyone can be proud of. I want to get to the bottom of it, just like you do.
This happened to me. I tried to call you. I called the WWF offices. You were always in a meeting. He took my number, said he'd return my call. But, he didn't want to talk to me, basically. I'm sure at the time he didn't know who I was, didn't know what I had to say. I tried to explain it to whoever I talked to, and I called. And,
This was when, sir?
1985.
I don't recall the telephone.
Has there been any lawsuit?
I find that to be a lie. I do not recall a telephone call. Come on, you're so full of shit.
Do you believe that sexual harassment exists in your workplace?
I believe that there's a possibility of sexual harassment existing everywhere.
I asked directly if it was in the World Wrestling Federation.
My organization. I don't want it.
I'd like to reiterate the question. Do you believe there is sexual harassment amongst the wrestlers or employees of the World Wrestling Federation today?
There is a possibility of that. That's why I have these independent investigators to come in.
Who are these independent investigators?
Fairfax Group Limited. And I would like, to hear what you have to say, and everyone has to say. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Would you therefore believe that because of all these allegations coming forward and more corroborating evidence proving that there's no doubt sexual harassment is running rampant in the World Wrestling Federation, that you are definitely going to come public and do something about it?
Why wouldn't I? If in fact that is the case, why wouldn't I do something about it? Why would I risk what we have?
Because you haven't done anything about it until it became public, because you thought it was
Because I
underwater.
had no knowledge of it.
I made knowledge of it to you when I was fired, and you just blew it off and let me go. I
You were
retained
fired
a lawyer.
because you were not very good. You were not a very good announcer. You could not.
He was not a very good announcer. That's why he was fired. I beg to differ. I don't believe him.
The reason why you were fired. You could not make the transition from radio to television. That is the only reason why you were fired.
I would like to remind you, sir, that I have a 2-year contract. 2
You
years.
also have a clause in your contract that states, and as you know, you were hired on a trial basis.
I was not hired on a trial basis.
You do not have a
Mr.
contract?
McMahon, I have a 2-year deal
In
with
that
your firm.
contract, you will note, and a clause that states very clearly, and I have it outlined for all to see here today, that you can be fired almost at will. If in fact you're not doing a good job. You did a horrible job. That's the only reason why you were fired. That's it.
Maybe I should point out, first and foremost, that might be your inability to pick good talent.
It could
You
be.
had a national
Granted.
talent search, Vince
It could
McMahon.
be.
You advertised in Billboard magazine and across many different media sources, searching for one man that could be the new face and voice of the World Wrestling Federation. You flew me in back and forth 4 and 5 different times from Detroit, and you chose over the course of 1 year of negotiations that I would be the man for that job. I didn't sleep with your vice president. 2 weeks later, I'm fired. I also want to point out one very important fact. From your office came a letter to my landlord to verify my employment. From that letter, I must bring this point up. It says Murray Hodson has a very secure job with Titan Sports and is a positive and productive employee. From your office. Just because I don't sleep with your vice president, that qualifies to blow me out of a 2-year deal? I don't buy it.
Amen. Well said. I kind of believe his story instead of Vince's.
Said very well, but I believe untrue. If in fact these allegations against Pat Patterson, whom you won't name, are true, why not pursue the legal course, the legal recourse? Why not pursue?
We are doing that right now.
You are. And you are aware that you waited 6 months after you were let go to bring these homosexual charges against Pat Patterson. 6 months you waited. Why?
September 14th.
In fact, you were fired on the spot. If you were fired for incompetence, all right, why didn't you say right then? Why didn't you say, never told me that? No one had any knowledge. Human resources had no knowledge of that. Rene DeVos was waiting to hear your story. Why did you wait 6 months? You asked me for $160,000 today, otherwise you were coming on this program. I'm happy you're on this program.
Mr. McMahon, do not try to deflect the truth here. First
What
and
are you asking
foremost,
for? How much money have you asked for?
I have never asked for any amount of money from you. You have tried to buy me off to shut up so I wouldn't come forward and tell of these allegations that's running through the World Wrestling Federation.
Your attorney should be consulted.
My attorney, on September of 1991, came forward to you with a letter addressed to you, telling you exactly what happened and that I was discharged wrongfully. I had a 2-year contract and that you two were well aware of the fact that there was a homosexual advance made against me. Don't tell me I waited 6 months. 3 weeks later, I was on your rear end.
3 months later?
6 weeks later.
No.
The only reason we waited a little longer was because you continued to try to negotiate to buy me out, and I wouldn't allow it.
The fact of the matter is, if you look into this man's past, the fact of the matter, if you were looking
I
at
don't think we should bring up the
I
past.
guess not.
The
Okay,
issue
sure.
at hand here,
All right.
Mr. McMahon,
Okay.
is one thing and one thing only. You addressed on Larry
That's
King
not the
Live
only issue.
Friday on CNN. You went on and you said that I never worked for the World Bodybuilding Federation. I am on a video that is sold around worldwide through my voice. So you told the country that I didn't work for the World Wrestling Federation.
You were a freelance and you were hired.
Well, of course
All
not.
right.
But second of all, you said you fired me. You didn't fire me. John Filippelli not only gave me the letter, but he also fired me. John felt so bad that I was being released that he allowed me to stay at his house if I wanted to and be with his family until I could find further place to live.
And that's, my friend, speaks to all of the good deeds and good people throughout the World Wrestling Federation. We're talking about 3 people here. We're talking about 3 people, and only 3 people that have brought these allegations against. We're not talking.
You actually see how Vince is trying to avoid the situation. It gets ugly from there.
About the 300. We're not talking about all our wrestlers and things of that nature. Let's keep some balance here.
Let me make the point that this very important conflict transpires at a time that the all-time star of the wrestling game, Hulk Hogan, felt obliged to go on the Arsenio Hall show to say, I do not use steroids, only to be followed by a number of...
I don't believe you said that, Phil. If I can...
Well, he said I used it, 3 times
He did admit to steroid usage.
He said 3 times. And we have now several people stepping forward to say, listen, I sent Federal Express packages. They were picked up here and there. This is not to suggest that we know the absolute answer to this. This is rather to call your attention to the fact that now some inquiry extends to Hulk Hogan. Why is that important? Because he's on just about every kind of child's toy you can buy. We're talking Hasbro here. Some of the biggest giants in the manufacturing of toys and the images. He's not yet Mickey Mouse, but $1 billion worth of business. How much at risk is this, and how much will the steroid controversy find its way onto the front pages or the sports pages of our newspapers? An establishment that, as we have said, has largely ignored any kind of probe of the wrestling game. We'll talk with journalists who have probed it in just a moment. Sir, Dave, you're an editor of the Wrestling Observer, which is what, the New York Times of Wrestling?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but...
So in this segment, it's Dave Meltzer, Superstar Billy Graham, Bruno Sammartino, John Arezzi, I think I pronounced it right, who still does a wrestling podcast in Nashville, Tennessee. He was on this segment. So let's take a listen.
Well, you might as well. If I say, John Arezzi is a talk show host, a wrestling program at WEVD-AM. You guys will agree that the mainstream folks really haven't had a whole lot of time for any kind of probe or serious attention to wrestling. Isn't that so?
Well, I think that's wrestling in general has never gotten its due recognition as far as its popularity.
As a business,
as a business and entertainment, both positive and negative. I think that it hasn't been given, and maybe perhaps that's why a lot of things have happened.
Okay, that you mean over the years, and no whistles have been blown.
Exactly.
Give me your shortest speech, Dave. What's going on here? Why is this serious? I mean, I think we know, but there is a kind of a tendency to chuckle at this. You know, the big boys are playing with each other is kind of ha-ha. And it isn't. It is not at all. No. Well, tell them why. Tell them why this is important.
There's so many different issues here, and as far as like a criminal thing, I think hopefully everybody in this panel wants just the truth to come out. And I don't know what the truth is. We all hear different versions of the story, and we just want to hear the truth. So that's fine.
John, what would you add to that? Same question.
Well, mainstream media pretty much has ignored the entire situation. They really just started jumping on it last year with allegations of steroid abuse in the World Wrestling Federation, and now they've really come alive.
And what do you think? That's what opened the door to these charges?
I think what opened the door to all these charges basically was the fact that last year, after the steroid trial of Zaharian, Vince McMahon started a steroid policy.
Dr. Zaharian, Harrisburg, PA, 3 years steroid distribution.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Zaharian was a doctor that prescribed these wrestlers steroids, and he ended up going to jail for it. Unfortunately, he's back to being a doctor again. He's out of prison, but I think he should have got life, But that was the evil doctor that killed all of these fucking wrestlers. So let's listen.
And after that trial, Mr. McMahon started a steroid policy, and during that press conference, he did not invite the wrestling media. I alerted Phil Muchnick to that, and after that, that's when certain people started calling Mr. Muchnick about other allegations.
You speak of the New York Post reporter.
Yes.
Superstar Billy Graham, I'll tell you what, he's won his share. Former pro wrestling champ. Hey, baby. They still love you, Billy. Don't tell them I had to give you a shot before the show, right in the mouth, because you were disobeying my orders. Hey, what's not so funny, Billy? Tell them. You saw ring boys, did you, being sexually harassed?
Yes, I've seen ring boys being sexually harassed.
What's a ring boy?
Ring boy is a person who's usually employed to put up and take down a ring, travel from one town to another. Age group possibly from 13 to 19 to 20, fluctuates anywhere in between.
You saw what?
I saw on one occasion, I believe it was New Haven, Connecticut, Pat Patterson actually grabbed one of these children in the crotch while putting up the ring. I came to the ring a little bit early, walking by the ring to the locker room, and I saw Pat Patterson with his left arm on the kid's shoulder and his right hand in his crotch. I witnessed this for myself.
You also claim to have, you did not see the abuse of a 12-year-old boy in the car. You mentioned this on Larry King's program.
I wasn't on Larry King's program.
I'm sorry. Sorry, you weren't. Bruno was. We'll get to Bruno in a moment. Did you see, you didn't see the abuse of a 12-year-old in a car by the ring announcer, did you?
I didn't see the actual abuse. I was there the night at Allentown, Pennsylvania, when Mel Phillips was caught in the front seat of a car with a child approximately 10 years old performing oral sexual on this child of 10 years old, brought into the arena by a security guard, confronted to Mr. McMahon, Vince Sr. and Vince Jr., and they said we would handle it.
Vince Sr., your father? Is that right, Vince?
Yes, and first of all,
is that true?
No, I don't know if it's true or not. I can tell you that no one ever came to my dad.
What was the year this is supposed to have taken place, Billy?
82 or 83, I can't remember, but the main part, I want to be able
to... We should also make this point, Billy. These are pretty heavy bombs you're throwing
here. These are very heavy bombs.
But we don't have any proof, and I don't think you're claiming to have seen the illegal act.
Okay, I may not have seen this particular illegal act, but it has gone on for so many years. just as the selling of drugs by Dr. George Zahorian has gone on for 15 years in the World Wrestling Federation, witnessed and condoned by Vince McMahon, you see, and condoned by him sitting this close to Dr. Zahorian while he sold steroids, while he sold barbiturates, downers and uppers to every wrestler who wanted them. You see, I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is the man can condone this, so he also condoned the homosexuality. He put up with the drug selling, and he put up with the homosexuality.
Identify the cast of characters here. You mentioned Mel Phillips. He is another of the executives who has resigned.
I don't believe he was an actual executive. He was a ring announcer.
Was he not? Has he not resigned from the WWF?
I believe he has resigned from the fire. I don't know.
Is he not one of the people who has?
He's one of those who has
stepped down
alleged,
following the publicity about this. Nobody's been proven guilty. We should get that point. You're denying you recall anything like this, looking the other way.
The thing of it is, why not speak up? If I saw something like that, I'd call the authorities. That's what you would do. A 10-year-old boy, you call the authorities. Come on. You're not going to let somebody like that get away with that? Please.
You know what? Why didn't you? Why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you speak up when you allowed Dr. George Zahorian to sell barbiturates that almost killed Rick McGraw? They were in his bloodstream when he died, along with all the.
We're all smarter now about steroids.
Wait a minute. Steroids, hardcore drugs that I had 3 overdoses with myself. Dr. Zahorian's drugs. And I tell you one thing, if my wife would have had a gun, she flushed half the drugs down the toilet. And if my wife sitting right there would have had a gun, she would have killed Dr. Zahorian. And she said she would have had a chance, she would have killed this McMahon because he permitted it to happen.
Yeah, but you took him too, didn't you?
I was addicted because of the accessibility.
Well, you must have been a real crank when you were on him too, weren't you? I mean, doesn't it affect your personality? I don't want to go there in your mouth.
You're addicted.
But you're also crabby and easy to anger, aren't you? Doesn't it alter behavior and emotional?
Not if you're sedated. Not if you have barbiturates.
Could you compete and survive and be a top card person in the 80s in the wrestling game without taking steroids?
No, not you. You would have to take steroids to this man's World Wrestling Federation to be on top.
Because it made you bigger, you look better in the poster.
And that's the market.
We'll be back in just a moment. Martino, you did appear on the Larry King live program.
I find it very odd because in this video, Bruno Sammartino defends Vince McMahon. Have a listen.
Last week, are you impressed with Mr. McMahon's apparent acknowledgement here on this program, which was not forthcoming on that one, that maybe there is a problem?
Some of these poor folks out there are sitting there listening to these guys, and when he makes them, they even applaud. Poor people, you don't know this man. Let me explain something to you. I wrestled from 1959 to 81, and I retired. When I came back in 84 as a color commentator, believe you me, the world of wrestling that I left and the one that I found, it was bizarre. I mean, it was filled with drugs of all kinds. We're talking about steroids, but it was cocaine. In fact, this man who pretends like he wasn't aware, why did somebody come to me? One time I had to go to Arizona, to New Mexico, a different place, because one of his druggies was out of it, and I took his place. Even though I really didn't care to at that stage of my life because I'd retired. I specifically said to the man, hey, if I'm going to be going to these places in the arena, says I want to make sure that I don't drive with any of you wrestlers that are full of coke and whatever. So he arranged for this other old-time wrestler, Jay Strongbow, for me to travel with him because I wouldn't be in the car because I was always afraid of a car being stopped full of drugs. And he said to me, don't worry. He says, I'll get the agent to rent the car so you can go around with him.
Well, let me just say this on behalf of Mr. McMahon. First of all these charges are yet to be proven.
They're just coming up.
And if just, I want to get to this, Bruno. Well, yeah, that's another thing. Why are they just now coming up? Let's understand this.
I can answer that question.
What is it?
There's never been a forum for them before. You have to understand that the wrestling business has always been a totally closed entity. It's almost like an elementary school. You don't snitch. You don't tell. If something happens in the business, there was a friend of mine, okay, and it has nothing to do with Vince McMahon. I don't want anyone to think it does. Who was murdered in a dressing room, and it was very difficult. This was in Puerto Rico, and
that person that was murdered in the dressing room was Bruiser Brody.
It was very difficult for the wrestlers, even in the murder, to go to the police the next day and tell the truth. It took one of the guys who was a friend of the guys, says, we've got to go tell the truth. And there was so much pressure on telling that, that you don't snitch.
I get it. But this point has to be made. These are men in groups.
For sure.
Not unlike the New York Mets.
That's right.
Some of whose members are now under a very big, embarrassing gun of a charge brought by a woman. Just let me finish here. I guarantee you there's nobody in this audience that's going to drop over of indignation to discover that pot smoking may have taken place, that throughout the 70s and 80s, especially when the money started rolling in, cocaine started to take place. No doubt about that. And I guarantee you this bright audience knows damn well that steroids were used. This is easy to get. We know this. Now, wait a minute. Here's the question. Did the WWF, or did the environment, or did people in power not only look the other way, but actually condone the loss of jobs, the loss of employment, because of bold, unrestrained aggression of a sexual nature by men in power on younger men who wanted to rise within the system?
Absolutely.
That's the question.
Can I answer that question, sir?
Sure.
Last night on my radio program, I had 2 midget wrestlers on, and
We don't see him anymore, do we?
no, we don't. We don't see them anymore.
why?
Last night on my show,
This is pretty graphic stuff this guy's gonna tell you. So if we have kids, should not be in the room. So just warning everybody. Just listen to this.
a midget wrestler by the name of Karate Kid alleged that in a dressing room, Pat Patterson made some sexual advances towards him. The leader of the midget group, Lord Littlebrook, went to Pat. No, it sounds bizarre, but it's sad.
Please, running out.
Yes, okay. Lord Littlebrook went to Pat Patterson and said, "Leave this kid alone. He's not gay." He scared the little guy, to tears. They were not used, but one time after that sexual advance was denied. They were only used one more time, and the midgets have not been used since then.
Vince McMahon, he is the owner of the World Wrestling Federation. And he's already lost how many? 2 or 3 executives have resigned. 2 executives and 1 announcer. Yes. Who worked right under him. What did Mr. McMahon know, and when did he know it? And is it unfair to have asked him to give these guys the heave-ho, given the complexity of these charges? Who's got the evidence? Who's going to believe who? Did he fire this and out? This is, if it weren't so painful, it'd be fascinating. We've got the boss saying to the secretary who accuses him of sexual abuse, "I fired her because she couldn't type." Maybe she couldn't type. What is the truth? We'll be back to explore it further in just a moment. Of Americans, a lot of them young people. These pros in the wrestling game will tell you a lot of the folks screaming the loudest in the audience are young people, males and females. Dave, you're editor of the Wrestling Observer. Do you see Mr. McMahon coming forward here to open the door, at least, to the possibility? Are you impressed with what he has said here in the first part of our program?
It surprises me, and I'm glad he said it, because
You're glad he said what?
I'm glad he admitted that there was a possibility, because none of us know for sure. Maybe Barry does, okay? And Murray and Tom, okay? I don't know for sure. It's one person's word against another, and maybe if the executives told Vince that this didn't happen, maybe they were telling the truth, and maybe they're not. I can't tell you for sure, although I will say this, I do believe Barry's story. He took a polygraph, and I've spent a lot of time discussing it with him, and I think that I'm pretty decent at talking to wrestlers and separating the fact from the fiction, and I believe Barry's story.
Let me take the time to
Very please, sir.
say that what the big story really was not really the story where I sat between Pat Patterson and Terry Garvin, but shortly thereafter there was another instance, and I remember I'm 19 years old, and I drove from Amarillo to Albuquerque, New Mexico with a single passenger being Terry Garvin, who about 40 miles outside of town started proposing that he perform oral sex on me while I was driving, begging me to let him do so. And of course, because I was young, I didn't want to lose a position or a shot. And I don't have homophobia. I have no problem with, I'm a First Amendment person. I believe everyone has a right to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
And I told him as nicely as I could, please don't be offended, but that's not, what I'm into, and nothing personal, and, I'm still your friend, but no thanks. And he did this every 40 to 50 miles, he would start again, and it got harder and harder to talk him out of it.
That's horrible, but that happened.
Well, let him finish his point. And your point, Barry,
My point is that Dave Meltzer just said I have taken a polygraph about all this stuff and came back totally clean. My point is that if he was attracted to young men and younger, because I even heard the stories of the kids underage back then.
his behavior towards you makes you wonder about how he may behave toward others. Is this the point?
Yeah, even
And
now.
you also want to know what? I mean, you know, you can't. You don't want to get the posse and the rope and the tree limb for Vince on this, do you?
No, I don't. I don't want to get the posse in the rope for Vince. However, this has been going on in the dressing room in the WWF, and I'm talking, you know, under Title VII of the code of the law, it says that any unwelcome sexual advances, touching, or anything else is sexual harassment.
Right.
Now, we have these guys who are bookers and top executives, and believe me, I'm out of here before they are. I know I can't go and complain. I'm sorry. Now, you can say whatever you want to say, and you know that to be true.
They have the power. No matter what you say, you're going to be dismissed.
I'm gone because they are more important than I am.
Yeah, you wanted to say, Bruno, very briefly, with all kinds of folks in this audience who haven't even had a chance. They're coming after me here. I'm going to need you in just a minute.
Glenn said, why did they go to the authorities? What you folks don't know is that you don't go to the authorities if you want to eat because you're merely dead. You're finished, kaput, blackball. This father blackballed me all over the country, not for this, for some other issue.
Well, let's not bring in the...
I won't. I'm just talking about that there's no union, there's no protection for the wrestler.
Very good.
Wake up, you're dead.
Vince McMahon, here's the charge. You had to see this. Your agents, right under you on the organization chart, are accused. 2 of them have resigned, including an announcer. Where were you all these years? Was the money so good? Was the glamour so great? Was the business exploding so wonderfully that you didn't have time to get into this kind of thing, and you looked the other way and allowed it to happen? That seems to be the way this charge is evolving against you.
I certainly didn't look the other way. There's no reason for me to look the other way and risk everything that we have going
You didn't
for us.
know any of this was going on, Mr. McMahon?
No, I did not. What Barry is making reference to is an act some 14 years ago. 14 years ago, that happened. How am I supposed? I don't know that happened. This is the first time hearing of it on the show the other day.
Yeah. Do you believe it?
It could very well have happened. And to that extent, if in fact it did happen, again, those individuals whom these allegations are being brought against are no longer with me. I don't know what else more I can do other than to garner as much information as I possibly can to see that if in fact some of this was going on, does it happen again?
You know, we're always going to have wrestling. The question is, how threatened now is this empire with the accusations of steroid abuse and now gay sexual harassment? Because if you don't convince, obviously this is, I'm not suggesting, I'm telling you something you already don't know. If you don't fix this, you're not going to be able to give these tickets away.
No question about it.
And we'll be back in a moment. The Incredible Hulk Hogan. Are you acknowledging here that Billy, that you actually introduced young wrestlers to steroids?
I'm acknowledging that Hulk Hogan came to me in 1977 at Tampa, Florida, and inquired about steroids.
Right.
Because he wanted to be a wrestler.
You know, I'll tell you what. I don't want to send him to jail for that.
No, I'm not.
1977. That's how you did it. And we didn't know. All right. But you look back on it and you say, "Holy cow, that was wrong."
But the point is, I freely gave the man that information in 1977. But the fact of the matter is, now he has gone on the Arsenio Hall show and lied to a national audience that he has never taken steroids except for 3 occasions, and those 3 occasions being for therapeutic use only for a torn bicep. I've injected the man myself probably a half a dozen times. David Schultz, a close friend of mine, has injected him over 200 times, and Hulk Hogan himself has told me personally, "Superstar, I knew nothing about steroids when I began.
But why?
And for the first year, I took a shot every day of my life, every day for the first year until I learned how to cycle steroids." So my point is, Phil,
you're threatening a very big income here with this.
But you can't lie to children in this country about drugs. That's child abuse. When you get on television and you say you've never taken steroids and you've done it for the whole 10 years, and when you take steroids for the decade of the 80s, and when you take them for cocaine and other drugs, and you lie about this to children. That is child molestation of their minds. You can't lie to kids about
John Arezzi, you wanted to say, sir.
Didn't Vince say on published reports that you were devastated when Hulk Hogan made those statements on Arsenio?
Was it devastated?
That was the word used to me. It was.
Well, all right. I don't recall using the word devastated. Hulk Hogan, I think, told the truth. The question is, as far as the media is concerned, is whether or not he told the whole truth.
I don't believe the truth.
And let me say this.
3 times is not the truth.
Okay, first of all, let me say this. That as you would recognize, Superstar, as you started this whole steroid phenomenon in undoubtedly professional wrestling, it seems to me that we're losing sight of the fact that steroids were legal at the time. I mean, it was
Not in some states they were. They were not legal in Florida.
But
they were legal in Florida.
The issue is,
they're not legal now.
You lie to
Yeah.
children.
All right. That's why we insisted our steroid.
If you ask me, and nobody has, I don't want to string up a guy who took this football, wrestling, whatever, in the 70s or 80s before the sunshine started to come down on us about the terrible side effects of this drug. Your point about your accusation that he lied is a different. Hello.
Hi, to the 3 men on the end who
Yeah.
lost their jobs,
Yeah.
how many people in the World Wrestling Federation today are performing special favors to keep their jobs?
Well, today, I would have to say I don't know because the two main culprits, I guess, have resigned and stepped down.
When you were working there, percentage-wise?
Well, percentage-wise, I can't really say like 30%, 50%. I know of at least one person that was there from the beginning till end.
You had to say.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. McMahon concerning all those executives resigning. Don't you find it strange that all those accused have resigned? Why did you accept their resignations? And wasn't indeed Mel Phillips suspended?
Yes, you have one individual who's suspended who is not technically an employee, although he worked with us almost every day. And you have 2 executives who have resigned and we've accepted their resignation. Yeah.
You talk about child abuse, but if you saw or had knowledge of a child, a young person
Blow the whistle right away.
because
Something.
You have to understand the wrestling.
By coming forward right now, I'm done, man. I'll never wrestle ever again under any circumstances. I am done.
Yeah.
But when you have a family to support, and you're talking about your livelihood, throwing it out the window.
that man said he saw a child being abused. If that's true,
I
he
said,
is a scumbag. If you had knowledge of
you
it,
lied to
you should
children.
have done something
You
about it.
lied
I
to children.
want your career.
That is child abuse. That was my point.
Bruno, you wanted to say.
I wanted to tell that young lady, please, they were reported. We told you the parking lot incident, when it was reported to them, they said, well, what they do their own time. They didn't care. Don't you understand that?
Over
They
here.
didn't care.
First of all, I think that it's a shame that 6 of the people on the panel, with the exception of Mr. Meltzer, are sitting there accusing Mr. McMahon, who so far has done nothing wrong. Mr. O, I know you've been in jail. Mr. San Martino, your son was fired under very suspicious circumstances. How can you sit here and accuse Mr. McMahon out of personal vendettas?
None of that has any. We don't know what you're talking about, Sonny. When you grow up, maybe you'll understand a little bit.
I'm just wondering why people go into wrestling in the first place. I mean, they know it's not a pure art form. But even just looking at wrestling, you can see that it's tacky and it looks.
People loved it.
So you can tell it's pleasing just by looking at it.
I got a break. Are you there, caller? Yeah. I can't talk to you. Hang on, maybe I'll get you in. We'll be back in a moment.
Question to the wrestlers that have been in the business for a long time. How many are there percentage homosexuals in wrestling?
Nobody knows that. How many homosexuals in your neighborhood? Report back to us on that. What did you want to say? Yes. Isn't wrestling fixed anyway?
It's not a real initiative either.
No, that's a creative decision. Who wins? The snake loses.
All right, that's the end of the video. So we're gonna talk about it. All right, so let's dive into this. So it's been 30 years since they did this segment on the Phil Donahue show. So So there was inner turmoil within WWE at the time. It was all over the tabloids, all over television. Every talk show was talking about this. As a result, it saw an electric group on the panel, including wrestling legends like Bruno Sammartino, superstar Billy Graham, and lesser known grapplers Barry Orton and Tom Hakins, who was fired as a journalist. Well, you probably heard what he said, but he claimed he was under a 2-year contract. Um, but there was a radio announcer by the name of John Araizi on the show who still podcasts and talks about wrestling till this day in Nashville. Um, he's actually still doing it. At front and center, Vince McMahon. Um, he's confronting the accusations of unwanted sexual abuse, illegal narcotics usage within WWF. See, the problem with Vince is he's he's under fire right now. This has been going on forever with him. But I think around 87, when wrestling was at its peak, later after WrestleMania 3 event, Crockett was doing his 5th Starrcade, and the main event was Flair and Ronnie Garvin. Back then, it wasn't on pay-per-view. Back then, it was on closed-circuit television. They didn't have viewer's choice back then. So you can actually watch the event for free. So most cable providers made the event to customers instead of Starrcade because Vince McMahon wanted the cable people to show Survivor Series and not show Starrcade. That's how much of a bad promoter he was. So when you talk about WrestleMania 4, they had the Elimination Tournament to crown a new champion. Flair and Luger were still in the show at the Great American Bash in a bloody brawl. Which I've seen that match a dozen of times. It's a good match. But 88 was the year of the Anti-Drug Abuse Act that was implanted in wrestling the same year. They distribute anabolic steroids with intent to distribute for any use in humans other than treatment of a disease based on the order of a physician, which is by the name of Dr. Zoran. Dr. Zoran's the one that gave these drugs to these wrestlers, and now they're all dead. And he's still providing medication. Should have got life in prison. That's my opinion. But people are entitled to their opinions. So this is quite a mouthful. I've never talked about this stuff on my podcast before, but it could be quite a mouthful. So when they did the first Royal Rumble in 88, WCW had intense feuds to keep Ric Flair busy by the names of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Terry Funk, and Sting. Those were Flair's best opponents. Flair did like working with Harley Race, but I think with Flair, Steamboat, and Sting, those guys are his best opponents. And WCW was doing good business back then. But there is a black cloud over Vince McMahon's head. And that was the WWF steroid scandal involving him and Dr. George Zorhan, who was a doctor in Pennsylvania, by the way. So in December of 89, the WWF was tipped off that the Justice Department was investigating the company, mainly or George Zorhan, for illegal drug trafficking. Even with this upsetting news in April 91, Skydome drew an attendance of 67,000 people for WrestleMania 6. So on October 5th of 1990, with the Anabolic Steroids Control Act in place by Congress, it determined that the steroids are in the same legal class as morphine. So in December of 1991, the WWF was hit with the U.S. District Judge, whose name I'm not going to mention. I'm going to keep him private. He sentencing the urologist, I can't pronounce that name, and former ringside assistant from 84 to 89, George Zorhan, on the 12 to 14 counts. This included 8 for distributing steroids and 4 for legally distributing prescription painkillers. He was also fined $12,700 and did jail time for this. Um, yeah, so almost done. Let me get a drink. 1 second. So he would ship them FedEx to wrestlers who wanted the drugs. There was 2 other wrestlers that were seeing this doctor too, Ultimate Warrior and the British Bulldog. And I guess this doctor ended up getting caught and he did jail time for it, and the Warrior and the Bulldog were fired. And this was after SummerSlam. So, but yeah, he would ship it FedEx to these wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and made a profit off it. And guess what? All these wrestlers are now dead because of this man. They just took these drugs, and abused their bodies like it was candy. And it was all over the tabloids. They were exposed for this. And everybody was talking it. Not just Phil Donahue. Every talk show was talking about this. In 92, that was like 30 years ago. So this is part 1 to this. Now for part 2, it's going to be an even better episode. So guys, I want you to come back and tune in for part 2. It's going to be really good. So if you like videos like this, leave a like and subscribe. If you leave a like, it tells me I did a good job on this episode. And I will catch you for part 2. And by the way, share the video. All right. Catch you guys for part 2.